Hello, friends. We are here back at it with Pink Pixels. This is our Monday. This is the real start of our week. It is our opportunity to just connect, to find out where we are and ground ourselves before we get into the whole mess of additional emails and meetings and work and deadlines and everything else that just begins to pile up in the midst of all of it. So I am glad that we get to be here, that we get to connect. And as you all know, to no surprise to anyone, that every week we have amazing guests who come in and they share with us their stories, their experiences, their insights, their challenges, their joys. And it's something that creates just a beautiful feast that fills our souls. And I love being here. It broadens our horizons because I'll be honest, if it were just me, plain me on my own, right? I live in a very small world. The games that I have played, very small. The experiences that I've had, very small, despite being very old, right? And by having more people join us, we get to have such an enriching world we live in. We get to have better understandings, more perspectives that help us appreciate this gaming industry that we all partake in. Now, tonight, we have an amazing guest. She's absolutely darling. I cannot wait to bring her on. So we're going to just flip on over to her right away. So if you would all be so kind, help me welcome our guest this evening, Vanessa. Vanessa, say hello to us.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Vanessa Vera. Actually, Monday is my favorite day of the week, so I'm so happy to be here with you all today on a Monday. I'm someone who loves creating a sense of belonging. Currently, I'm the Global Ad Sales Manager at Microsoft Casual Games, which falls under the Xbox Game Studios. And at work, I've always been involved in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Happy Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month to all. And on my spare time, I'm a member of the IB Games Committee, and I'm also a mentor coach with America Needs You.
I love that. That was so concise, and yet you fit so much in. It's beautiful. You are currently right here at Microsoft. Was this where you thought you would find yourself 10 years ago?
Well, I've actually been working here 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Well, in your role, how about that?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I get the question. So interestingly enough, I always had like big dreams or what I thought were big dreams. And now I'm learning that I don't dream big enough. And that's something actually last week that just came into my mindset. But as a young girl, I grew up in Union City, New Jersey, which is right outside New York City, right? And from my front stoop, you could look over and you could see everything that was going on and the big buildings. And as a young girl, I'd always dream like, oh, I want to work there. And my family, like I was talking to you briefly, I come from a huge family. I'm the first in my family to graduate from college. My mom is one of 15, so I have too many cousins, but I went into the school system not even knowing English. And that is what kind of was instilled in me was go to school, do good. It's just your typical first-gen immigrant story, do well. So I just knew I had to do good in school. And then I went to a high school that actually focused within the arts and tech. And during my time there, you had to pick a major, and I picked desktop publishing, and it was more related to graphic design. And I had one teacher who just mentioned, hey, you should study public relations. And because I didn't have any other guidance, I was like, oh, I'm going to study public relations. And I just did a little bit of research, and University of Florida is one of the programs where you didn't major in communications, but you majored in public relations. And I applied, and they start school earlier. So I got in before most of the college application process. But my goal was, go to college and then one day work in New York. And when I
Which
started,
let's just call real quick, going from like top north to like down to the bottom and then back up, like way to make some jumps.
Yeah. Bodies of water are one of my top 5 favorite things in life. And another thing that I didn't know and this just shows like the naiveness of me, is I thought University of Florida was what I envisioned Florida. And the University of Florida is nowhere near the ocean.
No.
I mean, luckily there was a pool.
It's like in the middle of the state. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
I mean, water on either side.
Yeah. I remember getting there though, and like almost having like the opposite of like of a culture effect because I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I just do? Like this is a culture shock to me of this is so different. But
Yeah.
I did always, even in fourth grade, I remember like my student of the month card, what do you want to be when you grow up, said CEO. And I didn't know what that was, but I just remember reading in a magazine when I take my mom to a lot of different doctor's appointments, like the top salaries. And you know, this is just, you know, the environment I was conditioned in. And I'm proud of my story, but me and my mom did share a bed until I was 29 because we always lived in other family members' homes because my mom couldn't work. And that was okay because my path was like, I want to do well in school and I want to have a career and I want to get a job and I'm going to buy a house. And I'm talking to you from the home I own. So I'm very proud of my journey. But I did know, to your question, I did know that I was going to work somewhere great. And Microsoft is a great place.
Yes, yes. I love it. And I want to call out, well, two things. First, because I see it going off in chat. Go Gators. Temptress is actually graduating from University of Florida this weekend. You're getting a lot of love from the locals here.
Good.
Yes, yes.
Good Gator.
We love it. We love it. And I love the opening line that you gave us, like that you didn't dream big enough, because that, it sounds like you were dreaming big for a lot, like how we might consider like writing CEO right on your little half sheet of like, that's where I want to be. But I understand, like, seeing this journey that you went through of you certainly always had what sounds like a drive, like you had a vision of where you wanted to be. Like there wasn't a lot of like dilly dallying here or there. It sounds like you were focused when it came to school.
Yes, because I do have goals in mind, and usually whatever my goal is, I'm going to make it happen. Like it could be, I need to finish these pints of ice cream. I'm going to make it happen. I have done ice cream eating contests too, but
What? Hold on. Did you win?
Did I win?
Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Okay. That's okay. You still gave it your shot. But so yeah, so you're always focused, like you always had these goals in mind?
Yeah, I'm very goal oriented. And I've, you know, I think everybody's different, but I'm a tad competitive, and so I love just setting goals and making sure that I always hit them. But this whole like dreaming big thing, I think too came to me because I realized that a lot of my goals are built off of the systemic like system of connect the dots, like go to school, go to college, get this job, buy this house, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm now in my life realizing like that's like not even the tip of the iceberg of what you can do or should do. And I was having this conversation with somebody because I realized like, wow, this person's like looking to like change the world in a way, and how do they even start thinking like that? And I was so curious, like, how do you start thinking like that? And that was the answer. It's like you have to like dream big and know you can land there. And I think the beautiful part about it is like usually people do. Like if you have a dream and you really want to accomplish it and you really believe in yourself,
yeah,
you can get there. And I would like I spoke at the high school I graduated from. I think it was 2 weeks ago at this point, and I started realizing that a lot of the new generation does want to create change. And I think that that's amazing. But I also think that the way that we're structured, you know, go to high school, go to college, we all can't follow the same path to make it in the same way. And it's okay to do something different. And I think even how we look at problems, like we're taught, oh, you have this problem, you follow this solution, or, you know, even the way people play games today is, you know, there is a concept to it and how they're coded, etc. But what if people just started thinking differently and like created something completely new? And I think that's where people's heads should go when they're dreaming, like whatever it is, like something that's never been thought of, that's okay, because it may be something that this world needs.
I love that. It's a nice comparison of like, I'm going to use hand gestures because it's like the words tomato, like tomato sort of feel. Like there's dream big in terms of like, yeah, your typical society accomplishments versus like dream big, which is how do you make things that are not currently in existence by society? Like they can't set them as like, you should do this because it doesn't exist there yet. You have to figure out what that next big thing is going to be. That's what it feels like. There's this tangible of pathways that feel a little bit more rote. And then there's this beyond of like, you are greater than what we currently have.
Yeah, but we all should believe in that because we're all capable of so much, and we're all different and can give back to this world in so many different ways.
I love that. It's inspirational and it gives a lot more power to wherever we might be in our pathway or in our journey or in our life, whatever career we might find, is to kind of see ourselves beyond just that restriction. That's empowering.
Yeah, and I think generationally too, as we get older, you keep falling into like, okay, well then at this age you'll retire, and at this age you'll do this. It's like you don't have to either. Like if there's something else you want to do, or you want to retire early,
Yeah.
or you can set that up for yourself. Or, I am in no way like I've done a half Ironman, but going to that event and seeing like the Ironman community, and there's people of all ages who are still like challenging their bodies, and like they get to that finish line. And I think starting at your local track and just like even starting to walk for 5 minutes, and then you make it 10 minutes, like anything in life, no matter what realm, practice and time really get you to places. So you can really do anything.
I love that approach.
Create a new ice cream flavor after this.
That's
Like I've
true.
never even made ice cream.
Then we can put it in a competition and then you and I can race to see who can eat it fastest.
Yeah. And I did lose that competition because actually it was gelato, and I was not ready for that. And gelato has way more cream than ice cream. So you can imagine what happened. So I think if the consistency was more ice cream, I could have won.
Oh, okay. So you had trained particularly for ice cream, but then they threw gelato in the mix and you're like, my strategy.
What is this?
Okay. Yeah. So I want to pull on a particular thread because I hear this a lot when people say like, I'm a bit competitive. Are you really just a bit competitive? Or is that you undermining saying, no, I'm incredibly competitive? Because I also hear like you are the greatest Connect 4 player out there. Like I get this sense like a bit.
I can't see who said that, but I did get really good at Connect 4 at one point in my life, because I actually had a ski accident when I was around the age of 27. And I somehow, it was a very simple fall, but somehow I shattered my collarbone to the point where the surgeon said, the only collarbone I've seen worse than this was like a professional motocross biker, and they had to put a wire and screws and all these different, a rod, all these different things. But somebody purchased Connect 4 and brought it to me, and anybody who would visit, I would just keep playing and playing and playing and playing. And because of this practice and time that I spent on it, I can say I'm pretty good.
So it's a fact. Yeah. It's a fact. You are competitive in Connect 4. I assume then this is true for everything, because I'm getting a bit of a like, you are not just a bit, you are competitive.
So I'd say, I can't say I don't like losing. I like losing sometimes.
Okay.
Let me get the words right. I enjoy losing because then that makes me like there's still more in me. Like I can beat I know I can improve on this. So take that how you will, but I enjoy losing, just knowing like, oh, I can get better to win.
No, I think that's actually a very healthy approach. I think in competition, we don't often see that. Like there's winners and losers and only the winners are celebrated. But that's actually a really good approach when we say like, it's good to lose, right? Like if you're winning every single time, it just makes it sound like you're not being challenged or you're not in a space where people can push you or you have the room to grow to go
Right.
further, yeah, loser has a bad connotation, but like, right, like not being the winner gives you that chance to say, now you have a new goal. Like it makes it clear of where you can go further with that. You are
Yeah.
driven. You are. That's a good
But
take.
in any, and also I think that as I've learned in life too, a lot comes from your childhood. And if I do think I'm like a story of like a survivor in a sense of my childhood and just like driving everything that I've accomplished because of my will and what I wanted to. And but to your point of being able to like look at who, if your competition could be yourself, but let's say if it's somebody else, I think that's beautiful, because then that's how inspiration and aspiration is built from. And even when it comes to games, I think one of my cousins is I can't see the chat, but he was actually somebody. So in when I lived in my aunt's house, my boy cousin was older than me, so he was always a little bit faster, a little bit quicker with things, and he's a huge gamer, and he'd always beat me in any game we played, and he was just so good. But I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget at the local pizzeria when I set the record for Cruz Exotica. And he doesn't maybe know this, but I just wanted to beat him. I didn't even want, like, I actually wanted to beat the record, but I was like,
Yeah.
this might be the only game that I can beat him in,
Mhm.
because he's just, I would watch him. Even I started playing Brotato, and we actually went on Twitch the other day, because I'm like, I
Oh,
don't understand how you beat this with every character. I just don't get how you did it.
yeah.
But he's got the skills for it. I give him that.
But I think this is like another good thing why you approach competition or that drive in such a healthy way, right? Like it's not that you're like I have to win, but you
Yeah.
surround yourself with people that push you. That's when you find yourself in a good environment, like, and they're people that love and care about you, right? Like these aren't just like enemies that you're picking off the street and you're tackling them, right? You're finding people that you love, you trust, and they challenge you, and in that challenge, right, like you weren't trying to become top overall, you just happened to get that. It's because you look and surround yourself with people that will push you, that give you that ability to say, I want to go further. I want to be able to drive. I want somebody who's going to sharpen me and make me better in the way that I want to.
I love that. And your circle is so important
Mhm.
to help continue to grow who you are as a person.
Now, are you very close with all your family? Because I mean, obviously, you've got a lot um, around
Yeah.
everywhere.
I'd say yes. I'm pretty close with a lot of my family members. I'm very close with a lot of my friends. I just really love when you were introing, you spoke about how, you didn't want that. This conversation is better because it's with people.
Yeah.
And I do believe like life is about shared experiences with people. And I'm very grateful for my friendships and the relationships with my family and anybody in my life. But I love getting to know people, because people are so much more interesting than anything in this world. And everybody's different, and how everybody thinks and talks, and my relationships with each person, I feel like I get something unique out of each one. So no friendship is the same.
Oh, I love that. I love that you bring such an open perspective and respect for others, like the experiences they have, that you want to get to know them, give them space for them to be known in that. I think that means a lot. Now, obviously, you work at a company that is very international, right? And even up where you probably have a pretty diverse company just within the local space. What is it like to be able to collaborate with so many other individuals, to work on such cool projects that you do?
Yeah, great question. It's definitely, I'd say, the pandemic, at least like my personal opinion, has changed things. So the other day, so Microsoft has a couple of different offices in New York,
Hmm.
and the other day the building that I spent the most time in my career, actually following the pandemic, had closed one of the floors because there wasn't at the time enough people going in. Now that there's like a resurgence of folks going into the office, they reopened this floor. But my entire the team that I used to sit on, which was Microsoft advertising team, moved to the Flatiron, a different building in Flatiron. And this is a building in Times Square, but I needed to find a desk. And I remember reading like, oh, they opened this floor back up. And as soon as like the elevator doors open, I had such a weird feeling over me because I thought, oh my gosh, I just spent so much time here, like, so much time. And that time you do become, there's a whole, and that is something I think for the new generation, like at least maybe they'll learn a different way to navigate around it, because I know a lot of, people earlier in career that are just starting and their whole world is remote, or even a lot of offices that have moved to completely remote worlds. And it's a different way to connect with people. But some of your friendships and later in life are developed from your work friendships. And I'm so grateful for that time in that office, because you do get to know people and you get to know what people love. Oh, so-and-so loves cats, or so-and-so, is really passionate about this, or, oh, there's bagels here, I know so-and-so brought them in because they love them, So I loved that. And just getting to know so many different people is also, you can go on a lot of the different corporate websites and look at all the diversity and inclusion reports and see that although the offices outside the street, you go outside, you see a lot of different colors, you hear a lot of different languages. It's not the same inside these corporate buildings. Now the team that I'm on now is fully remote. They were based out of the studios in Redmond prior, but now it's all remote. So I just being a people person, find it a little bit harder to connect with others just virtually, because it's just like, you have set times when you're talking to people, there's set conversation. You also, you have these like initial couple minutes where you're trying to talk about life, but then I don't really know, like, oh, does Beck want to hear about this, or do they just want to jump into the agenda? And you're kind of like, depending on personality, some person, and then they say, now we have the suggested like 25 minutes versus like the even 30-minute meeting. So it's like even less time, and it's just harder. But maybe I know there's a lot of great benefits to working in a hybrid environment and flex, and it depends on what you love, but there's good and bad in my opinion to it.
Yeah, I think that's a very balanced take, especially since the pandemic. All office cultures had to revisit of like, what does our culture serve? How do we fit people in? How do we make it accessible, but also safe and fit people's different needs, both functionally, professionally, socially, because these were hubs. Like if you are remote, I don't want to call it like water cooler talk, but like those little moments where you just in between projects, where you just catch up, where you say hi, where you look at the objects on each other's desk and you have little side commentary, right? Like there's those moments that allow you to see them as more than just your work person, but you see them as a person in general. That is so important to have. And I feel for that. That's hard. You're kind of giving us a little peek behind the scenes. Now, obviously Microsoft being massive, right? There's a lot of different ways that departments might organize, look, and play out. But I know we have viewers that are very interested as they get into the space. Like, what is it like working at a company like this? I want to start with some very basics. Like, do you work in a cubicle? Like, if you were in the office, are you in a cubicle space? Is there open office spaces? Is it like a rotating desk area? Like, even just figuring out what is your physical space should you go in? What does that look like?
When I first started, it was a cubicle. When we went into the next office, it was the open desk where you can see the other person on the other side. And in the newer offices now, nobody has, well, I guess you can, depending on if you're considered remote or fully hybrid, you can request for an actual desk. But if not, it's all these hot desks, which is also good. Like sometimes I love coming in and I'm just like, oh, I'm going to go hide out here. But then sometimes I'll go to a different floor and just hear different conversations. So it definitely, there's options. I think one of the things that I do love about the Microsoft Office is always though, is that there's so many, Microsoft's such a huge company that if I say, oh, I'm on the Xbox team, like there might not be anybody on the floor who's even on that team. Like, and you have people from Azure, and you have people who work in philanthropy, and you have people who work in the public sector, and I have people, I can't even describe what they do. And it's just such a massive company. I mean, it has more employees than some countries. And I think
That's a good point.
yeah, there's so many different groups too to connect with people, but uh, there's beauty in that too, and kind of like seeing like your commonalities and differences, and you have all these different folks that you can kind of reach out and get to learn from.
Yes. Now, as you start to work with more remote individuals and trying to build that connection, right? Have that community, that culture that you feel like a team. What are things that you have found that kind of helps make up for that lack of like the in-person connection? Because remote can be nice. It allows your teams to be broader, to pick people from like all over the world. Sometimes it's more, it's nice if people have different location preferences of where they want to live, like by their own family. But how do you still make something feel like a team at the end of the day?
Yeah, I love that question. I I think at its core is everybody on that team has to be like on the same thread of like a unison point. That
Committed.
could be, yeah, that could be something as broad as like the mission statement, or that could be something as like the value statement for your team. The team that I'm on today is a team that I've joined for a year, and you can just feel the passion that they have for creating casual games, and that common thread of everybody here just wants to create the best player experience for people that enjoy playing PC casual games is that common point. And then ad sales team, we're driven by, okay, we all want to do our best for our clients. And it's always about finding like a commonality. I think even when you're on any type of team, that one thing that you can all come back to. And that's why I do think that at Microsoft, even though there's so many of us, the mission statement of empowering every person or organization on the planet to achieve more is something that in any capacity all of us can kind of relate to. And
Yeah.
I'll be honest, and I've said this before, like there's some days where I'm like, I don't really know if what I'm doing is something that is like making this positive change in the world, or that I feel like I'm bettering the life of others. But I look at what Microsoft is doing, and then I look at what they contribute to, not only infrastructure but advancements in healthcare. And there's always all these like stories that I have no idea. And like, yes, they're in the news right now for a lot in AI and gaming, but there's a lot that tech can do to improve your lifestyle.
Mhm.
And usually Microsoft technology is a part of that in some way. So
Mhm.
that's something always that I'm like, well, the company's doing this, and I can be a part of this company. So that's good.
Yeah, I think that's so important because as a single person, like on our own, it's hard to say, like, I'm going to go change the world. The world is a massive place. It takes so many
Yeah.
resources. But being one person, a part of a very large team, like that does it. You have the ability to make a massive impact in not just one, but multiple industries, such as what Microsoft can pull off. For some reason, I didn't think about it, but yeah, Microsoft would have enough employees that it could be its own country. Uh, that just,
Yeah.
when you said that, struck me as so weird, but it's like, oh, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
uh, but I love where you talk about it needing to have like a very unifying idea of the mission or the goal of the team. And I think that works not only for remote, but it's a good fundamental that any leader needs to bring to their team, right? To be able to help inspire or commit and make sure that everyone understands, like, why are we doing this? Well, what are we moving towards? Where do you see yourself in the larger picture? Which it feels like that's an obvious thing, but when you get into the week of assignments and works and projects that you're doing, like you don't always go back and revisit your mission. That feels like a day one welcome, to Microsoft. Here's what we got to do, and then after that, it's like get into the nitty gritty sort of thing. how do you find yourself continually, reconnecting with the overall mission, where you do see that bigger picture, where you are starting to push yourself to dream bigger?
Yeah, I've learned to listen to myself over my career. So that's another part of, evolving as a person, is that all the things that you love at one point in your life, or all the things that you're passionate about at one point in your life, there may be some that do deem true for a very long time, but it's okay if some of those things pivot at one point. And I think for me, like constantly like listening to how my energy is, and if there's anybody that's listening and they do work in more of like a corporate environment, it is hard at times, like to constantly be energized about your work, but you have to remind yourself, like, or look at what of your day, okay, where do I feel that I'm getting the most energy, and at the same time, like, where do I feel that is demotivating me, and looking at those things throughout my career, be it as simple as like, oh man, pulling these reports, like I'm doing it, I know I have to do it, but I don't love doing it. And
Yeah.
like reflecting that versus like, wow, having this conversation with this client and understanding like what their business outcome wants to be. And like somehow I'm going to take all these Microsoft advertising solutions and like help them,
Mm-hmm.
is giving me energy, or just, building trust over time with them. Okay, well, I like this part about my skills and role, and listening to myself. And that's another thing. I've had this conversation with so many people at work, because once you're in your career, you're kind of like, oh, I'm not sure what I want to do next, or like, should I do anything next, or should I just stay? And I think it's so worthwhile exploring everything, because you never know what you don't know. And if there's any part of your body that's like kind of signaling to you, like, I don't know, I keep thinking about this, or like,
Mm-hmm.
well, what's the big risk if I did do this? And for me, that was coming into gaming. Like, I was at Microsoft on the advertising side of the business for 9 years, and I love that team, and I loved being on it. And it wasn't that I was in an unhappy place, but I started reflecting on like, wow, I used to have like I used to wake up like so excited for my emails, and then I started realizing like I'm kind of reacting to everything in a very like monotone way, where something really good could happen at work, and I was just like, oh, that's good, and keep going about my day. Or something terrible could happen, and I could just be so used to like my response that I knew, all right, no worries, this is what we have to do. And I just started kind of looking at that as like, I think my body's trying to tell me like, you should try something new. And there was a mentor that told me once that you should only stay in a role for 2 or 3 years. And then I've had other mentors that would say, oh, no, I shouldn't listen to that. But if you really think about the skills you could acquire, you could kind of learn the skill set of a role in 2 to 3 years. And depending on, I am a learner. I love learning. And if you ask my friends, like, I'm always picking up new hobbies that are just cause. And like, I, I, I do believe in that. And I like that for myself. So it's like, oh, well, let me go learn, a different industry, or let me apply my skills here,
Yeah.
and see what else I can come in. And day one that I switched teams, and I just even heard a different perspective on something, I said, ah, oh, I should have done this a long time ago. And now whenever I have a conversation with somebody who's young career, I'm like,
Yeah.
just start thinking, what else do you like? Like, start thinking now, because there's so much to do. And I read a book called Range. And I kind of use sports as kind of like an analogy for it. Like, Tiger Woods was taught golf,
Yep.
and that was like his sport from a toddler to now. He's great at it.
Mm-hmm.
And then Roger Federer was taught all these different sports, and just like, oh, you want to do, I think it was like martial arts, and you want to do tennis, just do whatever you like. But overall in life, the more range of skills that you have just makes you better equipped to solve something. Because as the world adapts, like having a very hyper focus on one thing necessarily isn't always the best. Whereas having a little bit of knowledge in all these different ways can make you have way more potential and be that connector in so many different ways.
I think that's such a smart little takeaway. One, to give ourselves permission that when we feel ready to move, that we allow ourselves, because there's sometimes that myth of like, you stay in a job forever, you know, you have that job loyalty and you can feel like, yeah, but it doesn't fulfill me. I can't push forward. And it prevents us from wanting to move up, move sideways, move where we want to make sure that we're reinvigorated, that we're in a spaces that continue to grow and challenge us. And I think that's also really good too. Yeah, as you mentioned, this is a volatile world that we live in, right? Especially in the gaming space where things rise and fall with just games themselves, or with how people, you know, stakeholders and what gamers seem to like and how sponsors engage with it. And so being flexible, having a lot of knowledge and skills in various places, what a great takeaway. For you in this space, what have been some of the most important skills that you're like, I'm so glad I have these because it has given you that flexibility that you've been looking for, that or that you need, that has allowed you to go where you want to go?
The first that just popped into my head is like adaptability, because
Mm, yeah.
being able to adapt for some is not easy, and you want to stick the course of like, no, we've been doing it this way, so let's keep doing it this way.
Yeah.
And not to go back to the dream big thing, but in a
Go
way,
back.
like trying something new, like it doesn't hurt. And um,
Mhm.
I guess like kind of like drinking the good old fashioned Microsoft juice on this one is Satya Nadella's. His book Hit Refresh really focuses on two things: empathy and growth mindset. And those are two things I think that I always kind of focus on too, because you have to be understanding of others and you have to have others in mind at all times. And on the growth mindset part, like you have to be okay with failing, and you have to be okay to say like, oh, this wasn't a good idea, but what else can I think of, or why didn't it work? And there could be one little string that you kind of like keep going down that brings you something else that you wouldn't have known unless you made that mistake.
Hmm. What a good and appropriate approach. I think oftentimes, especially when we're kind of growing in our industry, we have this pressure to feel like we know everything, we're good at everything, we're perfect at everything. But being comfortable with that risk is difficult. But when I think of a company like Microsoft, like I mean, they've made mistakes. No company is
Yeah,
perfect,
yeah,
but they're
yeah.
still incredibly successful. I mean, look at them, look at their size, look at what they've been able to produce, look at where they're all involved in so many spaces. That's such an important thing. How do you feel comfortable by putting yourself in that situation where you may not succeed, where it may not meet the standards that you had initially hoped? Because that's difficult.
Yeah, it is a mindset though, and like being vulnerable with yourself and being okay with failure
Mm-hmm.
is almost liberating. Like, and I think it, from experience, it does allow me to just kind of have that confidence in myself. Like, I'm going to try this. I'm going to see how it works. I'm going to set these types of sub goals to it. And I'll be able to kind of like determine how I'm perceiving success with it. But being okay with knowing like this isn't going to make or break everything, and just like have the ability like, okay, let's try it this way, or if I hear no on this, like don't automatically close the door, but now,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I can, is there a way that we can try this one capacity of it? Or there's always like a different angle on things that I think is worth looking into, and really being okay with it. It is so much harder to always want to be perfect.
Yeah.
And you setting those walls for yourself is probably not, it's probably stressful. And
Yeah.
that's why I do think it is a mindset thing. And sometimes just that mindset of like, hey, I'm not going to be. I'm not going to be the best at this, but I'm going to try my best, and I'm going to be really intentional and purposeful about it. Um, Usually leads you to an outcome you were looking for.
I, I think that's good because you also mentioned those precursors. Like if I were talking to my students, like yes, take risk, but in order to take risk and make it worth it, is that you have to be thoughtful beforehand. Like you have to be like, I'm planning. Here's why I think I will succeed. I'm putting myself in the best position to. But if not, it's not that I'm winning or losing. Is I'm looking at this opportunity to learn, and being sloppy in that initial work forward really cuts that opportunity and the value of taking that risk in the first place.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast this morning. Actually, I don't remember which one it was, but it spoke on just that. Actually, that you should always have a plan B. That great
Mm-hmm.
leadership always has a plan B because it kind of allows for you to have a falling space. And then let's say you only have plan A, and then all of a sudden there's no more gas in the car, then you're stuck. But if you had a bicycle, I'm making this up as I go. If you have a bicycle in the trunk,
Yeah.
now you still need to get to wherever you need to go. Like you had a plan B.
Yeah.
If that was some kind of weird scenario where
I feel like I
you,
need to put a bike in my car now.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
you're right. Like that's such a smart approach of like if this doesn't happen, because we recognize sometimes that happens, and that automatically gives us that grace to say like it doesn't have to be perfect. It's gonna be okay because I've got a safety net for myself. That gives you a lot more ability to be able to move forward. That is wonderful. I also want to call it like I love when I'm talking to you, you seem like you put yourself out there to gather so many points of inspiration. When you say like, oh, I read this book recently, like, and you've already referenced multiple books, or like I was listening to this podcast today. You really make sure that you don't just, get your own thoughts from your own experiences. You've really already diversified where you're looking for inspiration, don't you? Like is it like a weekly basis? Do you set like book reading goals for yourself or something?
I think I've just owned being a nerd, and
I love, yes.
I just I can listen to some stuff that's like pretty boring, and I can like I don't love reading fiction. I love reading all these biographies or like
Mhm.
business related books because I love learning more, um and it's really silly, but somebody asked me once. I said, what did you enjoy as a child? Like, what did you love as a child?" And I did like school. Like, I was that kid in class, like raising my hand and trying to come up with different ways to get good grades and help others in my class. And like, I enjoyed school, and even the TV shows that I liked, I did like Sesame Street, and I was always like in this like learning, like I don't know what it is, but it is a part of me, and I have an appetite for it.
Yeah.
Like I wake up in the morning and I want to listen to these news, and now with the way media is too, it's like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm listening to like a broad range of news. Or the magazine that I read is like about global affairs because
Yep.
there's so much in the world, and that's just me. And I think everybody has their own thing that they love, and uh, for me, it's just kind of learning a little bit about a lot.
I like that though. Learning about a lot that helps broaden your world when you think about dreaming big. It's hard to dream big if you don't know the space that you can dream within, right?
Yeah, or what can inspire you?
Yeah.
Like during the pandemic, I don't remember how I went down this path, but it was with grilling. And all of a sudden, I found myself watching all these YouTube videos about grilling and different grills and different smokers. And then I ended up buying a big green egg grill. And when I went to the store, the person selling to me was like, "You don't want this. Like, you haven't grilled. You should just get one of our, like, the propane grills. You light it up and you have fire." And I was like, "No, I have time. It's, there's nothing going on right now.
Mhm.
Um, I want this one." And I love grilling on it. And people that like come over, like when I'm making stuff for my family, I could tell sometimes they're like, is it ready yet? No, not ready. Because it is a process. You have to
Yeah.
like get the charcoal ready, then it has to get to a certain temperature, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not as easy,
Yeah.
but I do like being outside a lot
Mm-hmm.
too. So I think that there's just a balance, and it's I enjoy it. But if it wasn't for whatever came across like this grilling journey for me, I wouldn't have that in my life, and it has been a big part of, I guess, post pandemic Vanessa. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
But I love this because it weaves back into the overall threads where I see that you're diversifying your skills. And while you may not start cooking at Microsoft anytime soon, right? It's inherent of the habit that you make in your life is that you like challenging yourself. You want to learn new things. You pull up new things to allow yourself to explore who you are and what you like to enjoy in this world, whether that's professionally or personally. And I think that's important that when we have good habits professionally or in personally, that they bleed into each other, that we allow ourselves to have richer lives, to allow ourselves to know ourselves better. We allow ourselves to see what we're really capable of in so many different avenues. I think that's so fantastic. I want to call out chat because I see like infiltrating moms talking about also listening to a psychology marketing book this morning. So same mindset, or yes, definitely making plans, starting with plan B or starting with B through Z, having it prepared. I love that you're resonating with so many of us because it shows that what you're saying is something that we want to hear. It's something that inspires us and pushes us and says, that's what drives us to do the next day of work. It drives us to listen to that another podcast. It drives us to go to a class and learn a new skill. You're doing so much to help broaden us. Now, I don't want to let you go too far. We're going to take a little bit of a break here in our halftime because we're about an hour in. So we'll let you take a breather, go do a bio break, grab some water. For our friends that are listening, we'll talk to Vanessa in about 5 minutes, but I'm going to keep you all here for a hot minute because we're going to do a halftime announcement show real quick. So in this little announcement, we've got two things. First of all, we're doing a giveaway. I don't know if y'all know this, but we're doing a giveaway for Zenni Optic, and we're also announcing our Pink Picks selection. So first of all, about the Zenni Optic giveaway, guess what? It's really easy. All you have to do is type in chat. That's it. If you type in chat here, you are going to be placed in for a little selection tool that we have. I don't really know what it's called. It's a nice little bot. Our wonderful mod, Little Temptress, manages that for us. She is really the goddess of this channel for us. I'm here serving underneath her. So all you have to do is type in chat. Okay, thanks, Scrib, in chat. And you'll be entered to win. As you type in chat, say hello, say hi, whatever you want to do. We're going to announce our halftime Pink Pick selection. And then afterwards, since you'll all have time to type in a little hellos, then we will give away our Zenni Optic. So today, right in our halftime announcement, we are announcing our next Pink Pick selection. This is an opportunity where we shine the spotlight on extraordinary talent within our community. Remember, each week, you all, our amazing gaming community, submit incredible show of talent and spirit from femme-presenting gamers who aren't just playing games, right? They're changing the game to be recognized in this space, and they deserve it. They're changing how we approach things. They're changing how we understand things. Wherever they are and whatever they're doing it their way. And so today, we have another amazing gamer who has made her mark. So a huge thank you to all of you who have participated by sending in your wonderful nominations for Pink Picks. We love to see it. We love the celebration of everyone. It's your support that makes Pink Picks, powered by Thunderpick, not just possible, but a powerful movement towards inclusivity and recognition in our gaming space. So now, for the moment we've all been waiting for. This week's Pink Picks winner is... Eris Capri! Congratulations! Eris is a variety streamer, anime lover, cosplayer, and single mother of 3 boys. She plays scary games. Ooh, brave. I love it. FPS, RPGs, and almost anything her chat asks her to play. Some of her favorite games are also Kingdom Hearts, Animal Crossing, and Need for Speed Most Wanted, the OG. Not the remake. Important distinguish to make there. Gaming has helped through some of the most difficult times in Eris's life and inspired her to keep fighting for her goals and dreams. Eris hopes to continue growing a community full of amazing and beautiful people. So, for being such an incredible part of our community Eris will receive a swag bag from Thunderpick packed with all the essentials any gamer could dream of. We're talking our travel gear, high-tech gadgets, exclusive gaming gear. You know it. It's all packed in for our good friend Eris. So remember, this campaign is all about celebrating and supporting our peers. Keep those nominations coming in. If you see that, it'll be available on our Instagram account. So we'll continue, whether it's with Pink Picks or anywhere else. Lift each other up and make our incredible gaming experiences better. Make sure that, of course, you follow us over on the Instagram account for the gamers or anywhere else to make sure that you get in tune with everyone that we're highlighting, whether it's here on Pink Pixels or Pink Pix, or, of course, other amazing content creators that we have in the space. So a massive congratulations once again to Eris, and a big thank you to everyone who's played a part of this. So let's go ahead and hop back real quick as we do our Zenny Optic giveaway. We've seen lots of hellos in chats. Big fan of this. And our winner is... Little Temptress will announce it for us. I will go ahead and do a drum roll in hopes that I do not break my gaming chair arm pieces, but we'll find out. Oh yeah, no, these are sturdy. Kudos to Respawn as I destroy these. And our winner is going to be, as Little Temptress says, here we go, drum roll, da 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 da. I need to make a little audio sound for that instead of it's me every time. Da 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 da. That sounds a little bit bigger and maybe deeper. As our bot pulls names, Infiltrating Mom, congratulations! You have won our giveaway. All you have to do is make sure that you respond to the Gamers Little Temptress. The Gamers account will contact you, fill out a form, and you're going to receive a nice little gift in the mail thanks to our good friends at Zenny Optics. Congratulations! All right, good friends, we're going to be gone for just a few minutes. We'll be back right quickly as soon as we get back from our break. See you all soon. everyone. Welcome back to Pink Pixels. We've got our amazing guest Vanessa joining us today. I'm so excited to be here. We've been having really great discussions today, and I want to talk more about the career approach as we talk to the coolest cousin in the Vera family. I saw
Now
that.
it's official.
Now it's official. Label, clip that. This is your job title. We should have put that on the social media graphics.
Yeah.
But besides that, in your professional life as well, I want us to do a little time traveling approach here, right? So here you are, accomplished, amazing, doing amazing stuff, being a phenomenal person that you are. But I want you to go back as if you could talk to your college self, right? Getting ready to break out into the professional career. What recommendations would you have for them? What skills, what tools, what actions would you say, hey, you want to be in this gaming space? These are things that you need to keep in mind.
Okay. This is a very important question. And thinking back of when I graduated college, which was in 2009, the economy was not doing great. And I feel that what's happening today is also something reflective that if you are graduating now or going to be graduating, you might be encountering. So when I graduated college, the economy in our country was spiraling down. I went on a number of job interviews, well, even for internships. So I went on a number of internship interviews, and the candidates that were being selected had at least 2 years of experience because there was all these layoffs. So companies were hiring people with already job experience. And, you know, it's really scary. If you look at the news, you're seeing massive, massive layoffs across different industries, different sectors. So my advice, knowing what I know today, to Little or Vanessa would have been network. It is so important. You never know who that person might be that you meet, or you never know what company they end up working for. You never know who they might know. And going back to how this world is connected, it is by people. So I truly believe, even, you know, if you're somebody who's listening who's in high school, like, you know, your high school has a certain amount of students. That's still your network today. And then you do all your extracurriculars. That's still your network. You get to college, you have this ability to, you know, meet all these different people, join all these different clubs or organizations. These are all micro networks that then you can have. It's very, very important part of how you end up realizing how a lot of these things later get, you know, it. Once you see a job posting on a career site, like it might be closing, or the hiring man, the way the world is today, like the hiring manager might already have an idea of candidates who were interested in this segment. So I think that's something that you always hear networking, but I didn't hear about this till last month when I was speaking to somebody. And just to show you that I'm still networking, because I see the potential in it is, okay, now I've been at Microsoft, but now I'm part of Xbox, and there's all these brilliant minds here. They work across a bunch of different job functions. One day I met an audio engineer. Like, have I ever? Well, I guess I consider myself a DJ, but like, have I ever done anything in audio? No, but I never even thought about, like, you just never know some of these different job functions. And you know, he is responsible for creating sound effects to games, or a game studio dials him up and says, hey, in this game I need this type of music. And now I know him. Or I don't like my point is that there's so many people out there. And somebody last month said to me, it's not who you know, but who knows you now.
That's a good flip on that.
Yeah, and I never thought about that. But then if you start asking very successful people, like, hey, how'd you get to like where you are? Most of the time, this has not happened in my career, but most of the time they'll say like, oh, so-and-so just reached out to me and said like, hey, have this role available, or like, the doors just started opening and like this happened. And that is somebody who knew that. And I, speaking just for myself and a woman and, you know, being Latina and like, maybe not maybe, we do not highlight and celebrate ourselves. And it is very important to do that. So that would be one, is the network part, but the other would be the resilience, because at the high school career day that I went to, I saw somebody's presentation, and I'm upset with myself that I don't remember her name right now, but she just started working at Microsoft in August. So it was awesome to just like meet somebody who is starting a career at Microsoft. But there was over like 200 people at that career day, like talking about their careers. And my friend who works at the school had said, "Oh, there's somebody from Microsoft here. Do you know them?" And said, "No, let me go meet them."
Yeah.
Since she's earlier in career, one of her slides, and I thought this is so brilliant, is that she had quantified the number of job applications that she had applied to, the number of interviews that she had been called for, and the number of offers she had got. And she did it for her junior year and her senior year, and the numbers were very high. It was like, I applied to 80 jobs, I applied to 60 jobs.
Ooh.
And when you look at those, like, hey, how many interviews and offers did I get? They were in the single digits. And that's the reality of it. And I remember being in that space and like every day applying for jobs, applying for jobs, applying for jobs, and you just never hear back.
Yeah.
And maybe you have that moment of like, well, I'm just not going to apply, or well, maybe I want to apply to this one because this one bullet, it's not really resonating with me. You just have to shoot your shot. You know, that whole, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, that is real. And keep going all the way, and even until you have a job offer in hand, and then make a decision. But you're really not, you're at a disadvantage to yourself if you're not taking these shots.
Yeah, that's so important. And I love that transparency, because I think sometimes when we're doing that job application process, it's just like, it's us, right? And it just feels like it's us with this company and we're dialoguing, but everybody else is experiencing something similar, that it is normal that, yeah, you're submitting 80 applications, you're getting 6 responses, because a lot of companies don't even have the process where they tell you, no, we've moved on with someone else, please stop waiting for us, you know, not to even have an automated system like that. So you're not just like hoping every day for an email or a phone call to come in. And it's easy to get that job application fatigue that comes in with that. How did you get past that? Because obviously you got your job, you kept going through it. How did you make sure to say like, okay, we're going to do another one? Because writing cover letters alone is exhausting.
No, 100%. And it goes back to like setting up some kind of goal where even if it's for the week, if you say, hey, I'm going to apply to 5 to 10 different jobs and spend my time, and at least be able to like, maybe you made it to 4, or maybe you made it to 6, like, okay, and then look at your next week. You have to like take some, at least that's just what I'd suggest, like some type of approach, because if not, you're kind of go into these highs and lows. And I'm just speaking on things I've done myself, where it's like, all right, this day was really good, I applied to a bunch of different jobs, and then, oh, well, I didn't hear back, so let me take next week off. And then that's when you start losing some of the consistency, and consistencies and habits are just a formula to finding what it is that, you know, you're trying to achieve. So I definitely say like set small goals. Like sometimes you don't even realize like, oh, even me, like, oh, I'm going to set up a new learning time block every week. And no, I don't have time sometimes at work to like do these trainings. So I realized that like, oh, I'm never hitting this.
Yeah.
So then it became like, oh, I'm going to set it up every other week, or maybe I needed to change it to a different time block. And you have to, like, meditation. I'm terrible at meditating, and I want to be good at it.
Yeah.
And I just legitimately 2 minutes, 2 to 4 minutes. And that's
Mhm.
all I bounced around with. And I give myself grace, like, oh, it doesn't have to be first thing I wake up because I felt like I needed to do this thing. But
Mhm.
then later, I need to find time for it because I want to get better at it.
I think that's such a great example of like when we set goals for ourselves. Because if we're too restrictive, like okay, for me it's been working out. I'm supposed to be working out. And if I set the goal like okay, I'm gonna wake up early and I'm gonna do 30 minutes of lifting weights, I don't wake up early, as I've discovered. But if I didn't set that goal, if I just told myself, well, I'm gonna work out every day, it makes it hard for me to measure, and it makes it hard for me to assess like why isn't this working. And now I can kind of like with yours, you're like, okay, well, I need to get my things done in the morning. And then when I have the mental space to be quiet, to allow myself to meditate, then I can do it. If I say, listen, now that I've put the goal to say I was going to work out in the morning and being specific with it, I can see that that's where it's failing. I can move it to the afternoon or I'm going to make it to nights, by setting the clarity of our goals, like being specific, like, yes, each week I'm going to do 5 to 10, minimum 5, maximum 10, because sometimes we can overwork ourselves too, right? Applications each time. That makes it clear and measurable. And then we can assess, is it working for us? Is it not working for us? How do I feel? That reflection, as you said, is so important of like actually giving yourself something to converse about.
And what you're saying too, I love because I'd also add to it that sometimes, like, okay, the working out or submitting this application,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we didn't find the full time for it, but we could have kept the habit going if I would have said, just do 20 body weight squats,
Mm-hmm.
just put my resume in one of these AI tools and ask for, what else should I consider changing? Like just to tweak it to make it better, send it to somebody who works in the industry to ask for any revisions. Like even if it's like small steps, but not like the full thing that you wanted,
Mm-hmm.
that small habit does, we're all really hard on ourselves as humans. And then going back to like celebrating
Yeah.
ourselves, like it does, you do need to have that moment just to say like, oh yeah, I did do that. And that's a whole nother thing where I looking back at my life, I thought a lot of things were not necessarily, I would say I thought them, but because my environment was like, you're so lucky, or like going back to some of my cousins, like, oh, you're so lucky you work at Microsoft, you're so lucky you went to school in Florida. It's like I started to believe that, like, oh, I am really lucky. And then I realized, like, hello, this is not luck. This is like decisions and time. And
Mm-hmm.
even if it's a micro decision of I applied to this program at my college, like
Mm-hmm.
that, that you made the intention, you made the decision, others did not. So you should embrace that and be really happy with yourself for making that decision. And that got you to another place. And it's not luck, it's you.
I love that. Yes, yes. Own that. One, I love it because it's celebrating you and the work you put into it. Because sometimes we do. Sometimes we feel diminished, like, oh, it was lucky or somebody else helped us out. Even if others did, we still took the step to take advantage of those opportunities. Any step is a step still the same, and it is better than no step.
Exactly.
Yes. And yeah, I mean, you made some pretty big steps too. But you're right. Like, you break it down of like, yeah, going to college is a big step. First small step, applying, right?
Researching,
Yeah,
yep, all of it.
researching, seeing if one you like. Go visit a local one to see like, do you even like the campus? Or does it seem nice? Sit in on a lecture. Do you like it? Right? You're so right to think like, what are those small steps needing to be, just to get yourself into that space? I can see like in chat like, they're there with you of like looking at these big hiring processes, right? Like getting the no email, right, no reply emails, or like how many denials and calls we have. And you're right to say like to help fight that, just take your small steps. Focus on what you can do next because that keeps the ball in your court of how you can handle it, and then you're not worrying, stressing, looking at luck of how other things in the world are going to impact you.
Totally. And all of you mentioned somebody said something about the no emails. It doesn't make sense in the moment, is another part of life that I realized. Like, it never makes sense in the moment when something's not going your way. But later on in life, it makes sense. Like, I remember applying to a different role at Microsoft and not getting it. And I was pretty bummed. And I was
Yeah.
came home like I want to cry with my mom. Like I'm
Yeah.
just so sad because I really wanted this. And then when it did happen, I realized, oh, that didn't happen because this was supposed to happen. And there's
Mhm.
so many parts in life like that where maybe it's not even work related, but like in your personal life, and like you just realize like in the moment it didn't make sense, but then later on something else happens in your life where you look back and you say, oh, that would have never happened unless this happened. And then you can look at that moment and, be grateful for it.
Yes. To be able to have that, what hindsight is
Yeah.
2020. Yeah. Like, oh, now I see it. This is how it's supposed to work.
Now I get it. Yeah.
I love though that in that moment, because it is when we're in the moment, when we're going through the thing that we didn't want, like it doesn't move forward the way that we want to. We get that no reply. It's easy to feel disappointed, but to decide to say, I'm not going to let that impact me. I'm going to keep moving forward. That's the real strength and decision making process that you can use to empower yourself to make sure you get to the pathway that is the one for you.
Yeah, 100%. I hear everybody, when everything is going wrong, and it seems like like I always think about that little meme with the dog in the fire, and he's just
Everything is
like, "I'm
fine.
fine." Yeah, everything's fine. Like that happens sometimes in life, and in those moments, like your mental state is so important, and
Mhm.
um, it's not easy at all. But like the working on being able to reflecting yourself, for some it could be journaling, for some it could be talking to somebody, it could be different methods to do it, but being able to ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What does this mean for me? What did I expect? Why, asking yourself the why about things
Mhm.
can really help you understand, where it's coming from, and then realize like, why am I sad? Oh, because I'm not getting, these jobs. Okay, but do I have a job maybe doing something else today? Or like, can I start looking at this other thing? Or like, can all, lead something else to happen? And I think that that is the beauty of life, and kind of like you're having that self determination. And I remember I still have it somewhere in my room. It's right there. Internal locus of control. It was a word
Ooh.
in college that was on like a note card. And I kept it because the meaning of it is the belief that one controls their own destiny. And that always resonated with me. So your internal locus of control, because you're believing that you control what happens in your life. And um, to me, that is something that stands by my message, right? Like if I say to you, Beck, like I want to be, yeah, you know what? In fourth grade, the CEO, I just forgot to write CEO of Microsoft. Like I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I should believe that, and I can
Yes.
go and like create that. And you have people like, what about President Barack Obama? Like all these stories, like you
Mhm.
look back at them, like this person believed in themselves,
Yeah.
and you need to believe in yourself, and then everything else will follow as long as you believe in yourself.
I like that. I think there's something that allows us to recognize and understand who we are, that allows us to pave our own path, because it feels so easy to feel swept away into the actions, the control of others. And I think that's such a good, refreshing take on this. I love it. And of course, right, it speaks to where you are now and the continue approach that you have of not just with this, but in your whole life, right? Like, because your professional side is just one part of who you are. You pick up so many hobbies. The fact that you are really good with the green egg, right? Those things are a little temperamental. I would not be able to manage one of those. I don't have the patience. I'll say that. I don't have the patience for something like that to work. I love barbecue. I love a good grill. I love anything slow cooked. Not for me to ever make. But like that's because you have your drive, you have your determination, and you know who you are and what you want out of it. Like you have a vision when you take things up. When you went to that store to buy the big green egg, you knew already like this is what I want. And you didn't allow others to sway you like, ah, no, just get this little propane sucker. But that's because you knew yourself. You knew what you were capable of. And that strength allows you to become the great, green big egg cooker that you are. I don't think that's an official title, but you can have it. These are things that, again, these are lifestyle approaches. These are true to who you are. It's not just this thing that you turn on that's just for work.
Totally. Yeah.
I love all of these approaches. And I think at the end of the day, when you find yourself working at Microsoft and you hire other people to work with you, or you build your team and you select people on there, what are variables that help you identify to say this person is the right person to have on my team? This is the kind of person that I want to bring along with me. That if I move to another team, I would make the recommendation. I would make the referral, because even Aikipa noted like 50% of their people that comes to their company comes from referrals. What is it that you need to see out of a person to say, I would vouch for them?
Yeah, for me, the first thing is creativity. So that's one thing that stands out in an interview, because I know that everybody gets nervous before an interview. And then sometimes when you're on the other side of it, you realize like, oh my gosh, it's really just a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And these conversations, let's say, you're on the interviewer side, you might be having like back to back to back to back to back to backs, right? And this is maybe something that, because you're so fixated on like your responses to the questions, that you don't even think about, but that my response in like creativity is also like that person's authenticity, because there's the common answer to a question, say, tell me about a time where, there was a problem at your place of work, and what did you do to fix it, right? Mm-hmm. The responses are almost identical, right? Like when you think about a lot of what you're looking for, like everybody's kind of like approaching it the same. But what always stands out to me is like somebody who you can just like tell is being 100% themselves and creative thought. Like, we were doing this thing, but then I said, you know what? I'm just going to try this thing. And then they talk you through that. I'm like, oh, wow, this person like believed in themselves to try this whole thing, or like, how did it work out? So that's something that I'd say also bleeds into like during interviews, like do not make things up, or it just doesn't, there's no benefit of it. Like, if you don't know something and they're like, oh, I need you to know this code, or you need to have these certifications, like be honest with yourself. You asked an earlier question about like when I first graduated college and went on interviews. I never forget this. I did have 7 interviews. Ooh. And 6 of them were public relations. So that's what I studied in college, right? Yeah. One of them was not for public relations, and I had no idea what it was. And it ended up being the one that offered me a job. And in the interview, they asked me like, Vanessa, do you know what a CPM is? Vanessa, do you know this? And I just said, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn, or like, I'm not sure what that is, but I want to look into it. And I just stayed on that track. And for some reason, that's the one that I got a job offer, and it was at an agency and for media planning, and that I never even knew that whole industry existed. Mm-hmm. But I was in a position, I said, well, if I don't take this job, then somebody else will. And I kind of need to start building my professional career. And I never, the whole PR thing just never worked in it.
I think that's so funny, but it's such a good reminder that people, like good companies hire for people. They don't hire necessarily for the resume itself. And the fact that you're honest, right? Like your creativity comes with honesty. Like, yeah, I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. Yes, you brought in the attitude, you brought in the focus, and that's ultimately what they said. That's somebody who we can teach.
Yeah.
And that changed your entire trajectory. Yeah. Forget PR.
My whole life. Forget going to that college that had that really specific major.
That was a fun side quest,
Yeah.
But
But you learn a lot of these stories end up like that, like folks that don't end up actually working in what they study.
yes, yes. Well, and there's only so many job titles that are out there. Like there's not, or sorry, there's only so many. There's way more job titles than there are degrees, right? There's not many that are just focused on like a degree in just advertising. There might be from some schools that have a concentration with advertising, but it's not just like it's embedded within marketing or communication or something else. You know, so within it, when you get a degree, it's learning just the approach, the understanding, the philosophy. And if you can get that mindset, that allows you then into the space, especially with like ads, marketing, even comms, like APR, like what happened 15 years ago is not necessarily the same practices that we do today. Now, approaches and understanding how we connect, that's still true. But like the tools that we use, that's very different. TikTok wasn't a thing for quite a
Right.
while, you know? So to be able
Yeah.
to adapt, you know, there are companies that were successful on TikTok, and it's not because, you know, they had years of experience, but it's because they had the right approach of let's learn, we're going to grow, we're going to take the risk. Everything that you've been saying, you should be teaching classes on this.
Oh, maybe one day.
The next journey for you, you know?
One of my closest friends
Hmm.
actually, when he went to my high school, and when he went to college, he studied TV and film
Hmm.
and finance, and he liked numbers
Okay.
and he loved uh, cinema and movies and editing and whatnot.
Hmm.
And I thought that was like such an interesting like mix, like dude, what are you doing? But then looking back at it, I love that he did that. And now looking at his career now, he actually works at Microsoft too, and he started as an insights person, and on the insights team, right? Because he had this finance background, like he knows how to interpret data these different ways.
Hmm.
But then his other side of his brain is like this creative thinking, and he always made like the funniest presentations. And he ended up transitioning into sales as well.
Yeah.
And I always thought like his approach to storytelling was way different. Because why? Because he has this other part of his, education and what he loves to do that he was able to marry in. So I think that that's like really, if there's anybody who's listening or rewatches this and you're in college, or even if you're out of college and
Hmm.
there's something that you're passionate about, why not have that kind of bleed into your day to day, because
Yeah.
you just have a different approach for things.
I love that. And that I can see that again leaning into your like bring creativity to your interviews, bring creativity to your approach because I mean, data is one thing, but if you can tell what the data means, if you can pull out a story, and of course his background gave him the perfect means to be able to tell good stories in interesting ways because data
Yeah.
can not always be interesting. If it's presented boring, like if it just like I just see numbers, I don't know what it means. It is dull. It has no context. It has no actionable items that from that. So it makes sense that yes, when you bring in someone with a different level of expertise that can then apply it to the situation, oh, that's brilliant.
Yeah, and at even like a bigger macro level, I
Yeah.
think that's actually the answer to why diverse teams lead to better business outcomes,
Mm.
is because you don't have everybody who thinks the same, and you don't have everybody who's approaching everything in the same capacity.
Hmm.
And there's a bunch of studies that show that the more diverse a team is, the more, and this is just speaking on like the business side of it, so like
Yeah.
the more profit that those teams generate. And there is a lot of beauty in that. And I think when you're in a group where all of a sudden you all don't have the same degree, and you all don't have the same track record of working at so and so companies, and you're here, you have a room for a lot of fruitful conversation.
Hmm. Yes, yes. New perspectives, new takes. Somebody who says, well, what about this? What if we make it this? What if we rearranged the content and did it in this order? Would that make more sense to our audience who
Right.
doesn't have that same background? Oh, I love that. I love that. Now, of course, where you are now with advertising, what is it something like, what are some of the tools and resources that you use in your current job now? If somebody said they also want to go into advertising, what are things that they need to be familiar with?
So one thing I'd say is any industry, even if it's advertising or let's use finance, like
Mm-hmm.
there's so many different ways to approach these larger industries, and you may not even realize all the different job functions within it.
Mm-hmm.
So as an example, advertising, right?
Yeah.
Like on the advertising side, there's roles that are operational roles. Maybe you like working how the business teams function more on the operational side. There's finance roles. They have to come up with how things are projected, different forecasts. There's research and insights roles. They're looking at different trends in the industry. There's marketing roles.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking at how they're telling their narrative. There's sales roles. There's so many different parts. So if you like advertising, ask yourself, okay, what do I like about advertising? Do I want to be the one who's putting the creative together? Do I want to be the one who's telling the story? Do I want to be the one who's, driving some type of business outcome on the back end? Do I want to? There's so many different parts of it depending on like what you enjoy
Mm-hmm.
that you may not even consider. And then when you're looking at it, you could say, oh wow, I'd like to start my career in this part of it. And maybe an advertise, like you mentioned, TikTok and social, like social is a huge part of things right now. Maybe
Yeah.
you start your career, actually, in the organization that I mentor, America Needs You.
Mm-hmm.
So America Needs You is an awesome organization. They are nonprofit. They pair you up with a sophomore or junior in college that is first to graduate from college, university, and their family, and comes from a low income background. And you get paired up with a mentor for 2 years. So it's a bit of a time commitment, but it's to make sure that they graduate. And Yaneli, who is the fellow that I've been paired with,
Mm-hmm.
she's she does not need to have conversations with me. She's got it all like planned out, and she has a paid internship, which is so awesome, and she's still in college. But my point saying this is that she, is interested in marketing, but she's also interested in the business side. And she already set up her summer internship to be something in finance, and
Mm-hmm.
all these different like experiences is so like important to have, because then you can go and you can see, oh, do I like this or do I not like this? Or you
Yeah.
have this idea of like, maybe I want to work in human resources, and then you go and you love it, or maybe you go and you don't love it, or you realize like this is not what I thought, and I can't do this. Or maybe you even go and you realize I can't do anything in front of a computer screen all day. This is not for me.
Yeah.
Like and that's okay, because we spend
Mm-hmm.
so much of our time at work
Yeah.
that we should really enjoy it in some capacity, or be able to like compartmentalize it, because it's a big part of our life.
Mm-hmm. I think that's such a good approach of one, making sure that you have life outside. Sometimes, especially at the collegiate level, we're very focused of like, I got to get my degree. I'm going to get my work. I'm going to keep focusing on that. And we just hyper focus there that other things kind of fall to the side. So reminding yourself that this is a career that I need to go into that's going to impact then hopefully the rest of my life, like other things that I can do. And by rest of my life, like there's the daytime where you're working, and then there's hopefully nighttime where you can do other things besides work, right? Hopefully,
Yeah.
depending on what kind of job you have and the, expectations that they have and when the events are or things that you participate in. So you're right to like pull out that balance. And I also love like the idea that they need to do multiple internships, like because there are so many different categories. When we think of like marketing, that comprises of so many different roles and job titles and responsibilities and different parts of the stage that you might come in to help create. And of course, with a company like Microsoft, that is doubly intense of who you have versus maybe if you're at an indie company, you are the person who does all of it. Like,
For sure. And like it varies, and
yeah.
even if it's not an intern, like internships are not easy to get sometimes, and I understand that, but every experience can still be something in your journey that teaches you something.
Mm.
Again, like I'm a Microsoft interview, I ended up talking more about maybe not more, but it was definitely came up more than once, to the point that when I got hired, one of the hiring managers said, like, I didn't forget that you brought up like your experience working in a restaurant.
Yeah.
So I worked at a restaurant for over 7 years, and you would think like, why would I talk about a restaurant
Mm-hmm.
experience
Mm-hmm.
to Microsoft? But some of these questions were like about actual like client interactions and what would I do, and actually I'm like, this is real life experience. Like,
Mm-hmm.
somebody said that, was very unhappy at this restaurant, and this is what happened in the situation. You think that like there's very like specific answers, but going back to creativity and authenticity, like you can still gain different experience through different jobs, even if they're not what you might perceive as intentionally like this is the perfect job. But there's transferable skills. So you're able to say, hey, I was able to work with, in a way, clients who are the folks that are coming into this restaurant, and I want them to have a good experience here, and I want them to come back, and I want them to be happy. Like, you're still able to kind of tell that story differently.
Yes. You do the translation to say here's why it's important. Like it is of course at the restaurant, but there's so many skills that no matter where you learn them are still valuable. And we don't want to like minimize the effort and who we've become professionally to, make it feel like, oh, it only looks like this. This is the only skill they're
Right.
relevant in. That's such a good point. Now, of course, where you are, do you also have to be familiar with like because I mean we mentioned TikTok, like TikTok or Meta or Twitter and like their advertising policies, or especially with international, like when it comes to advertising, like what are international standards? Well, how do you stay even attuned of all of that to make sure that you're compliant, especially because ads are sometimes tricky and much more legally, under the microscope there a bit more.
Yeah. So I'm very grateful that there's so many other teams that kind of help
Oh,
support in these
exactly.
areas that are able to kind of, from a privacy
Oh,
standpoint,
yeah.
compliancy, it does vary by region. There's
Mm-hmm.
things that are changing all the time. Um, I, it's a very dynamic world,
Mm-hmm.
ads, and I think uh, the new generation of Gen Z and Gen A, I think
Yeah.
uh, the time on device is very different, and that is one thing that I just didn't realize, but now I'm looking into more. Is just I was in the magazine that I reading that
Mm-hmm.
in Utah they're passing these laws of how they're limiting uh, time on phones for specific teenage groups, because there's studies that are showing that addiction habits for different things like drugs or alcohol, those same addiction habits are the same for social media and the younger age group.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty scary. But then you start looking at different things of like, toddlers' reactions when you take away a screen, and you kind of start seeing, okay, like, yeah, the way we're reacting to this need of like needing to touch your phone, needing to check your phone,
Yeah.
it is breaking our focus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's something I definitely want to do a better job at looking into,
Yeah.
because I don't, at the same time that, my role is important to have players play our
Yeah.
games. I want to make sure that we also consider the addiction side of it, or make sure we're balancing it, because this is something new. Technology, the way that we have it today, right? Like you said, I didn't have, TikTok growing up, and it's a whole different world. I get that, but even now with like AI, like
Mm.
um, I use it. I use it every day in some way, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's going to start changing how much we use it, and how and all the different forms that we use it, uh, and all. It's just a dynamic world, but I don't know. There's just something about the amount of you do realize,
Yeah.
like, the screen time. It does affect you.
It does.
Even yeah, I've been noticing, like, sometimes I'm reading now and I'm like, I'll start thinking about certain things. I'm like, what's going on? Like, I should just be reading. And like, I have to like almost remind myself, like, Vanessa,
Hmm.
picture the images in your head. And like, because our brains are just being wired differently to constantly like change from like, swipe to app to check to this to that.
Yeah.
And there's definitely, I'm not saying that that's bad. I like, it's good to stay communicated with friends and everything, but we have to have control of our focus to be able to think our best and use the best
Yeah.
amount of time.
I have to say, this is something that's always reassuring. I think when we think of large companies, we think of them as like they're big companies, corporate greed. They're always going to try to look out for their final dollar. And to hear directly from people like yourself to say, like, we're considering the ethical considerations. How do I play a part in what's impacting our society? And not just yourself, but of course other people as well. Or like with these teenagers in Utah, right? Like you're looking at this bigger picture of how you play a role. And I think we often forget that there are people in every company that are trying to make sure that when they create things like this, it's for good. Like it's trying to make our world better or more exciting or more adventurous or whatever it is to make it easier to be able to connect with people around the world, right? There's some really wonderful things that come from this tech. And it comes from people who are wanting to push for good and also being considered in how we do that. So I love that you kind of show that balance of, yes, but how do we make sure we don't go too far? How do we make sure that we're taking care of our customers, our viewers, our, people who are using our tools to make sure that it's safe for them? And that's often, sometimes that isn't often seen. That's the voice that we don't often give our big organizations. So I love that you get to provide that voice for us today.
I'm glad that I did.
Yeah. I hate to say that we're almost out of time, considering it is
Oh wow,
8:56. I know, like it goes. I'm telling you, it
an
goes by
hour
so
go
quick.
by faster than the first. Wow.
But you've been so fantastic. Like as we talk about this, you've been good to give advice and guidance that works no matter where we are, whether we're in the gaming space or we're in, the restaurant industry or hospitality or accounting or wherever we happen to be. These concepts of how we see our world, how we're dreaming big, what do we see our drive, how do we push for our creativity, how do we be our authentic selves, how do we make sure that we set goals for ourselves that are manageable, that are doable, that are moving us forward. You've given us a lot of ways to tackle this week. So I want to thank you for that. My to do list now is too long, also thanks to you. So a little sarcastic thank you at that point as well. But I appreciate it because some of these things like we've heard before, but it's important that we hear it again. And you are such a good example of when we do this, here's how we live fulfilling lives. Here's how we live lives that we're excited about, that we're dreaming of, that you are actually excited the next day to check out your inbox in your email, because a lot of people can't say that, right? Not as many people are thinking Monday's my favorite day, and it's yours, right? You are in a unique position when you come on here like I love Mondays, and you are a small population that might think so, but you give us insights and encouragement and inspiration to look reflectively, so that way we might be able to approach maybe not our Mondays, but perhaps our Tuesdays a little bit better, maybe our Wednesdays a little bit better, that we can broaden our world and be willing to take those risks for ourselves. Before we wrap us up, of course, I want to give people the opportunity to follow you because obviously you're fantastic, you're phenomenal. Where can they find you? What can they do to stay connected with you?
Well, my LinkedIn, if anybody wants to connect on LinkedIn, Vanessa Vera at Microsoft. If we could drop it in the chat, maybe definitely can feel open to connecting there. I'm happy to, and I'll also encourage people. Like I respond to people who just
Yeah.
write me messages and say like, "Hey, I'd love to just have like a 20-minute conversation." Like again, yes, you'll hear no's, you'll hear no responses, but there will be a person that will respond to you one day, and you never know where that conversation leads.
Yes, yes, that's a good point. And thank you for being open. Good friends, if you do connect with Vanessa, also send a message. Don't just do a cold connect, right? Add a conversation. Say, like, hey, I saw you from Pink Pixels, or I wanted to talk more about this, right? Take a step. Networking is about building relationships, and that small step that you should take isn't just sending the connection, but starting a conversation. Sorry, I'm doing a little teacher mode scolding there. I love it. Vanessa, we can't get enough of you, but we will have to stop for tonight so that way you can enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you so much again for coming on Pink Pixels and being the wonderful and insightful individual that you are.
And the thanks goes right back to you. I appreciate the community that the game has created. It is needed in our industry, and having these different dialogues every week on the Pink Pixels is instrumental to that. And Beck, thank you so much for the awesome questions, the insights. And yes, now I'm off to go watch the New York Knicks finish the game. It's game one today, so it was awesome connecting with you all, and I'm looking forward to where the conversation takes us next time.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you, good community. We'll see you all next week for another episode of Pink Pixels. Bye, everyone.